It was a bright sunny day and you just got Pokemon XY for the first time and you got blasted by a Mewtwo Y with Psystrike, only for you to resist the attack but your Pokemon still dies. Cause this guy definitely deserved the Mega, right? Not the first ever dragon? Nope, screw him. Throughout Pokemon's history, we've had a total of 4 gimmicks within the Pokemon games, that being Mega Evolution, Terras, Dynamax, and Z-moves. There's also Strong and Agile Style, but I won't count it as a gimmick even though I love the concept to death. But out of these 4 gimmicks, there's one that trumps every other gimmick before it as the most broken gimmick in Pokemon history. I'm going to be breaking down each gimmick and how powerful they are in battle compared to all the other gimmicks, to see which is the most balanced and which is by far the most broken gimmick in history. My name is Pokey, and in today's video, I bring you the definitive gimmicks ranking list from most balanced to most broken. Now, first off, we need to discuss what each gimmick does before we dive into our actual ranking. I also have a friend of mine help me with the video in a 2-for-2 special. That didn't make sense. This is why I don't write my own jokes. So for the sake of simplicity, I'll explain each gimmick briefly. Starting off with the first ever gimmick introduced, Mega Evolution. Now, Megas in a nutshell are these Mega Stones given to a handful of different Pokemon which allow them to gain a more powerful form, increasing their stats and sometimes giving them a broken ability. I'm looking at you, Blaziken. I'm looking at you. They also changed the Pokemon's appearance, but that doesn't affect actual gameplay. Moving on to the next gimmick introduced was Z-moves, and Z-moves were interesting to say the least. The difference between Z-moves and Megas were that every Pokemon was capable of using them. How it worked was you gave a Pokemon a corresponding Z-Crystal that would match one of their moves, and it would unleash a hella strong move or some status buff depending on the move you used. There were also some signature Z-moves for specific Pokemon that allowed both strong powerful buffs as well as debuffs to the enemy, but also unleash a powerful attack.
Now the following gimmick is one that had by far the most criticism out of any gimmick. Okay, maybe not more than Terras, but you know. Dynamax may look dumb on the surface, but it did something unique compared to the past 2 gimmicks. The way Dynamax works is that you make your Pokemon grow in size, resulting in not only double the HP, but also increased power in your moves. Not only that, but the moves could grant a bonus effect, such as making it rain while using a water-type Dynamax move. It was kind of similar to Z-moves in that regard, but weren't nearly as strong as other Z-moves we've seen in the past. Z-move first. The bonus effects were either stat boosts or weather effects, and not Omni boosts like Z-Happy Hour or Z-Evo boost. There were also Pokemon capable of G-Max, but none were actually different than Dynamax, and most were kind of mid, to be honest. And last but not least, we got Terras, which is our most recent gimmick. Terras wasn't as crazy as making your Pokemon big or giving them an enemy attack, but it would turn its typing into something completely different. They would not only get the new Terra type, but it would gain the stab of its newfound typing as well as retaining its old typing. This would be perfect to resist what would otherwise be a super effective attack, and there were no signature Terras either, which was honestly really surprising.
Alright, so now that we briefly explained all the different gimmicks, we can now start the actual ranking. First off, we are judging the gimmicks based off of these main factors. 1, what kind of counters are available to you against that gimmick, and 2, the most obvious one being how difficult it is to deal with said gimmick. Now with the boring stuff out of the way, let's get started, shall we? Coming in at rock bottom as the most balanced gimmick in Pokemon history, we have none other than Dynamax. Now I know a lot of you guys are raising your pitchforks at me and think that I don't know what I'm talking about, but hear me out, alright? For starters, I was ranked in 600th place during the Pokemon Sword and Shield rank series, which is to say I have a tiny bit more experience with Dynamax than the average player. Now the things that made Dynamax so balanced compared to the other gimmicks are very simple to realize. Number 1, there were plenty of counters to Dynamax. Unlike some of the other gimmicks on this list, Dynamax had many counters. For starters, Dynamax Pokemon are susceptible to status conditions like burn and sleep. Now normally for any other gimmick this wouldn't be an issue, but for Dynamax specifically it's detrimental since unlike the other gimmicks, Dynamax isn't permanent and lasts for only 3 turns. Sleep has the possibility of taking away all 3 of those turns, and on average you can still take away 1 to 2 of those turns easily, which is a devastating loss of value. And as for the buffed moves themselves, none of them are as powerful as you think they are. For starters, the moves themselves aren't nearly as powerful as some Z moves, and not only that, but the buffs themselves aren't even helping you sometimes. Buffs like weather are sometimes helping your opponent as well as yourself, and not only that, but even the stat boosts aren't broken either since none of them are Omni boosts, just single stat boosts. And what makes things even better is that the most popular Pokemon in the game directly countered Dynamax itself. Pokemon like Zacian had a move that would deal double the damage to Dynamax Pokemon. Even if you resisted Behemoth Blade, it would still sometimes deal half of your health because of the attack boost, stab boost, and monster attack that Zacian had. And what made things even worse is that the most used Pokemon in the game was this fat cat. This cat had Intimidate and Parting Shot. Why? I have no idea. So even if you were lucky enough to get 1 or 2 attack boosts, they would poof away because of this fat cat that was used on every single team. And you couldn't escape these 2 Pokemon either, so although Dynamax would give you a strong boost, the most value you would get would be on your first move. Right after that, it's 2 Parting Shots and a Behemoth Blade, and boom, your freaking Pokemon is bleeding out crying. It's also important to mention that most of the Dynamax Pokemon were the same every single time, so you had counters readily available for most matchups. Like you don't see Incineroar Dynamax, and Zacian can't even Dynamax, so that leaves 4 Pokemon left. And when you see a Calyrex Shadow Rider or a Charizard, it was pretty clear who was getting Dynamax and who wasn't. It was very predictable and very countable. In short, Dynamax takes the medal as the most balanced gimmick in Pokemon. Now, if you're enjoying this video, make sure to subscribe since it's completely free and I pump out videos as engaging as these on a daily basis, so it's a win-win. Anyways, thank you for your time.
Now coming in at number 3, we have Terras. Now Terras are similar to Dynamax in the sense that compared to the other gimmicks, it was fairly balanced. And the reason it's above Dynamax is because one of the main reasons Dynamax was so balanced was that it only lasted 3 turns, while Terras were permanent upon first use. Not to mention, some Pokemon would gain little weaknesses like Landorus and your boy Incineroar. With Terras like Electric type, it made getting them off the field that much more difficult. Like Terra Normal Dragonite with Extreme Speed, which was so broken because, as you know, Extreme Speed is a priority move. And even on top of all that, Terras were also very unpredictable. Not only would you have to worry about which Pokemon would Terra, but also know what they would terrestrialize into. And the Terras would sometimes be obvious, but also completely strange and unpredictable. But they didn't give Pokemon anything else other than a new type, which is why it sits comfortably above Dynamax as the 3rd most broken gimmick.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're at the home stretch. The 2nd most broken gimmick goes to the one and only Mega Evolution. Now, it's probably no surprise to a lot of you that Mega Evolution was, to put it simply, not very balanced. I mean, you've heard it from a lot of people on the competitive scene, such as Wolfie and Cybertron Zang. Mega Evolution gave so many Pokemon legendary level stat increases and sometimes gave them abilities that were just beyond broken, some of which had to get nerfed to the freaking ground like Parental Bond. I mean, what was Game Freak even thinking? And of course, they gave us this abomination. You see these stats? This was legal at tournaments. And on top of all of that, the forms themselves weren't even temporary but permanent. And some Pokemon even got better typings, which made them even more annoying to deal with. Some Pokemon even broke the game, like Shadow Tag Mega Gengar. I mean, wow. It was just overall a mess and wasn't healthy for Pokemon in the slightest. But are they still my favorite gimmick? Yes. Easily.
And finally, at first place as the most broken gimmick in competitive history, we have Z-Moves. Now, the reason Z-Moves are above gimmicks like Megas and Terras are due to these simple reasons. For starters, as we stated previously, everyone could use a Z-Move. Some Z-Moves were capable of giving your Pokemon a full-on Omni boost. Not only that, but most Z-Moves were even stronger than Dynamax powered moves. And the biggest issue here was that it was even more unpredictable to Terras. You never knew which Pokemon would even have a Z-Move. And on top of that, which kind of Z-Move it would even be. And whether it was an attacking Z-Move or a stat boost Z-Move. And which Pokemon would get an all-out pummeling to the face. There were so many levels that it wasn't even fun anymore, and it just added a whole bunch of RNG. And it became a guessing game rather than a Pokemon battle. There was no skill involved whatsoever. Some Z-Moves were also so broken that you couldn't do anything about it. Like Z Destiny Bond, which would have everyone on the field target a user with the goal to kill it and make an opposing Pokemon faint. Yuki can give more input as well, so take the floor, Yuki.
I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and be sure to comment down below whether you agree or disagree with the ranking. I would love to hear your reasoning as I do respond to a lot of my comments. But that's all Yuki wrote, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.